Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Human Resolve podcast. I'm here with my special guest, Kingdumb. Kingdumb, please introduce yourself.
Hi, so I am Kingdumb. I'm from the UK. I make electronic music and a whole variety of music actually, but focusing on electronic music. I've had over 300,000 streams using a DIY approach. I've worked with 2 charting artists. I've been supported on BBC Radio.
Oh, wonderful. So, Kingdumb, you and I connected because you contributed to my interview series with Authority Magazine, Rising Through Resilience, How to Be Resilient During Turbulent Times. What I found really interesting in the article is this idea of falling down and picking yourself and getting back up. How has that played a big role in your life?
I think it's been pivotal. I think everyone goes through stuff, right? And life is essentially a series of tests. Some people don't get tested till much later in life. And sometimes, those people, they kind of find it harder to get through times like that. In a sense, it was difficult, but for me, I sort of had struggles from quite a young age. And so, I was quite well versed in getting through difficult times from sort of a teenager, like a mid-teen. So, I think it's been pivotal for me to grow my character.
Yeah. So take us back. You grew up in Birmingham, United Kingdom.
Yeah.
What were some of the life lessons that you learned very quickly early on?
So I mean, I guess I lived in Birmingham till I was 10. Not that many life lessons at that age, but I guess moving to Swindon, which is the town where I'm currently at, that was a bit of a challenge because I went from a very sort of multicultural city to a very sort of white dominated town. And in my head, it was like, am I going to fit in here? What if I'm the outsider? What if there's racism and stuff like this? Luckily, it actually wasn't that bad at all. And I think actually I did a good job of adapting to the new environment. But it probably wasn't until later, sort of age 16, that things started getting a bit more difficult, I guess. But actually, the things that have happened since I was 16 have kind of equipped me to deal with a lot of stuff that will get thrown my way, sort of, that did get thrown my way in more recent times and, what will come in the future. So, yeah, I think it's, there are a lot of lessons. Yeah, probably too many to mention, but yeah.
Is that where you had the impetus or the sort of general feeling of surrounding yourself with the kind of energy that makes you feel good? I thought that was just a pivotal line that you had in the article. Could you expound on that?
Yeah. I guess being in music, it's very cutthroat. Everyone's kind of out for themselves. That's the kind of mentality that certain people have. And so what I did was essentially focus on my own path, be in my own lane, create my own thing, my own unique brand, sound, whatever, and really grow in myself. And I think part of that growing in sort of leaving bad energy behind was actually being more comfortable with myself. And so, I think I've, I've read many books over the last sort of 2.5 years. I'm sort of thirsty for knowledge all the time. And some of those books showed me was that actually that I think I lacked self-confidence through quite a lot of my life. And that played out in various ways, right? Like it could be as minor as something like getting an email from someone and feeling like I have to reply right now, straight away. It's like I kind of lived my life on everyone else's terms. That's what it kind of felt like, and now I kind of live life on my terms, and I think that's really important.
I would really like to speak to the music aspect of, what you're doing and how you mentioned you are technically minded, that a good friend
Hmm.
mentioned to you that your secret weapon is that you have a special knowledge that other producers were lacking in it. I would love to
Hmm.
flesh that out more.
Yeah. So I guess a lot of sort of you might call them beat makers. That's what I hate that. I hate that term, but you know, beat maker. When I hear that word, it just makes me think of you know, like a 12-year-old in their bedroom, kind of just messing around with like rudimentary software, not really thinking about the end product in its whole sense and full sense. And so um, yeah, I kind of come from a place musically where um, people try to really push the envelope. And I think that coming from that place, so I was always into drum and bass and jungle. I kind of grew up with that music, and over time, it's developed like crazy. Like it's the standards are so high, um, and so basically, I've taken all my learning from there, and I've kind of applied it in a new context, and essentially that's the Kingdom thing that I'm doing. Um, so yeah, I mean, if you look at a lot of great artists, they often take things from a number of different places and fuse them together. And I think you know, essentially that's what my path is kind of looking like at the moment.
Yeah. You know, we are a sum total of our experiences and who have raised us. And I love the fact that you addressed your dad. How has dad played an integral role in your life?
Oh man, so he's like an angel. I mean, like I don't know. I mean, I've got a tattoo here, kind of represents this angel, kind of represents all the people that have looked out for me in life, and you know, he's him and my mum both definitely included in that. Um, but yeah, I mean, he kind of really pushed me to go forward in terms of taking up hobbies, enthusiast kind of things, and yeah, like, you know, in the early days when I was first getting started in music, it was like he would help me out with getting my equipment and stuff like this. You know, he gave me the tools basically, and I kind of went and ran with them basically. And over time, I've kind of obviously gone and done things myself. So, um, yeah, he was pivotal. I mean, he's highly regarded in our sort of entire family, not just on my dad's side, but on my mum's side as well. And to be honest, he's like a superhero. You know, you mentioned superheroes to me before. He literally is a living superhero. Um, yeah, he's just he always gives sound advice, good counsel. You know, I can't think of a time where he's ever let me down, and I know that's really quite that's something that's really special.
Wonderful. Um, Going back to sort of the basis of today's conversation, how do you define resilience?
Resilience, I think, is basically the ability to just get knocked. It's really simple. I think it's the ability to get knocked down and basically get up again, metaphorically. You know, whether that's physically or mentally. You know, it's the ability to kind of say, you know what, this has happened, but what's just happened doesn't define me. I'm gonna get over it, get up and carry on.
Yeah, what was also striking is you know, you mentioned about having the courage and vision and the ability to learn from mistakes. I think it's so
Mm.
pivotal and often forgotten. How has that line in your life played an important role?
Yeah, I think it's really important because you know I think sometimes people get caught in a trap, right? Like they can be in a bad place or that something bad can happen to them, and some people kind of find themselves falling in that same place time and time again. And I think they don't realize that some of it is the mindset up here and the self, and actually it's not what's happening around me. It's, you know, it's what can I do to change this situation. And so learning the lessons is exactly what you can do. So, you know, if you find yourself in a tough place, then you need to look at yourself in the mirror and say, well, what part did I play in this for this to happen or to lead to this? um and yeah, you know, I see a lot of people around me, and these things happen to them, and they just don't seem to learn, you know.
Yeah. So in the article, I also mentioned this idea of resilience and courage. Do you
Mm.
see resilience and courage as one and the same, different?
No, I think they're different. I think you know, resilience is a kind of a character trait, I guess. But courage is different because courage is the thing that keeps you. it's courage is the thing that's inside of you that says, you know what, I've just had this. I'm gonna get up and carry on and move on, and I'm gonna go for whatever it is that I'm going for, right? Like, courage is kind of future looking. That's the way I see it, and resilience is like the ability to be in the present and to get up when you're down. But I think courage is definitely future looking. You know, like if you think of an army going into war, like all of those guys need courage, right? Um, yeah, courage is the thing that makes them look to the future to think, you know, how am I gonna get through this battle, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, and I like how you disseminated it by saying courage is the trait that allows resilience to happen. Without it, there is a lacking of resilience. Do you find that to be
I
true?
believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, because I mean, I guess, you know, if you didn't have courage, how are you gonna get back up? You know, I mean, you could and I mean get back up in a positive way because there's a difference, right? You know, you can get something can happen to you that's life changing or quite difficult, even a little bit difficult. Um, but yeah, you've got to kind of think, how am I going to take my life forward in a positive way now from this point onwards, right? Because the past is done. But yeah, and again, like that's where the lessons learned comes in because um, if you time and time again fall, you need to think, oh, how do I stop this from happening again in future, right?
Yeah. I asked in the piece about who you look to or look at with resilience, and you mentioned the famous actor Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
How has his life been an inspiration for yours?
So I'm not I must admit I've not looked into his story in a huge amount of detail, but I think I have read that through his life, like he's lost many close people, and actually through most of his career, he suffered from depression. Um, and you know, I think when you look at him and you look at the films that he's created, it's like you're real strong, man. Like to be able to go through these super high pressure situations while you've got depression, when you've lost all the people that are closest to you. I might have to fact check this, by the way, because I don't know if it was fake news that I saw, but you know, from what I read, he had had depression, lost all his closest people, and it's like when I read this article, it was like, um, what you know, what is it that keeps him going? I was like, he has a lot of heart, you know. Um, and it must be tough, and especially in that industry as well. Like you know, we talked about creatives and being creative, and the industry is tough anyway. But yeah, it's you know when you look at his films, The Matrix, like standout classic, like you know, um, groundbreaking films. And to keep the art at that level, I think, whilst going through a lot of troubled times, that's something. I think.
Yeah. I recently saw a TikTok. He was on a talk show, and
Hmm.
the host asked him, Keanu Reeves, what happens to us when we die? And he paused, and his answer was interesting because he said, I know one thing: the people that love us will miss us. And
Oh, that's beautiful.
it's such an interesting answer as opposed to saying what we all can't verify, but kind of feel, maybe sense. That was interesting.
Well, maybe that was him kind of speaking from people that he's lost because he loves them, and that's the first thing that comes to his mind when he thinks of it, right? Having been through that. So, yeah.
Yeah. I would love to unpack this idea of resilience with your own career endeavors.
Hmm.
When you've been asked, will you ever give up music? When you heard that the first time, or you've heard that many times, what's what's happening within you when you think about that?
You know, it's really interesting, because you know people have this notion of you know if you're making music, you need to make it or whatever. And yeah, there is making it. I get that. Um, but I think ultimately, I think that the people that kind of those naysayers, they kind of don't really understand how deep the desire and passion is within you to create. You know, and I think unless you are massively passionate about something yourself, you just won't get it. And I know it's usually these kind of comments are from people that have just gone down the standard sort of typical life route, right? Just either go and get an education or go and get a job, and just go and work and then live for the weekend and then plan for your retirement, which is like 50 years away. And it's like, I guess I do have a part of me that is like that, yes, but there's also a big part of me that's like, I want something more, right? Like, and why shouldn't I go for it? And yeah, it's interesting because in your head you're kind of like, these you're kind of, on one hand you're like, these people are supposed to love me, but they're not actually supporting what I'm doing. Like, essentially what they're saying is, I don't believe that you can do what you think you can do or what you're trying to do. Like, and that is the bit that I tussle with. It's like, if just any random person off the street said it, it doesn't really bother me. But if it's someone who you really love and loves you, that can be quite cutting. It can be quite cutting.
Yeah. You spoke so candidly as a teenager being mentally unwell.
Hmm.
What were what were some of the things that you gleaned from those experiences that helps you now stay resilient?
Ah, man, I think, do you know what? I think learnings from that time is, it's less about resilience for me. I think, I, I think what I learned, the biggest thing that I learned is that happiness is number one. Like, no amount of money can give you happiness, essentially, right? So, yes, yes, go and strive for those things, and be comfortable and have your house and your car and all the things you want, but ultimately you can have all those things and still not be happy. And so, I think for me the biggest lesson was that, um yeah, and I think I learned that, from a very young age. And I see people around me who still, they kind of put so much value on income or monetary gain, which is cool. Like, that's essentially the world we live in. um I just personally learned from quite a young age that actually that there is something more. And your health essentially is very, very important. So, um yeah, I feel like I've kind of flipped though. As I've got older, I've kind of thought, well, actually I'm good. Like, now I'm gonna go and do what everyone else has been doing for like the last 10, 20 years or whatever. Like, like, yeah, it's an interesting one.
So, Kingdom, how have you cultivated resilience?
I think I talked about it in the article. I think essentially there's two things for me. I think just experiencing hard times is one. And secondly, reading. So reading, I think, is really important. Not even reading traditionally, like with a book turning the page, like, audiobooks and podcasts like this, a great way to learn, like, but yeah, those are the two things. I think reading and, yeah, definitely, reading and going through hard times,
Yeah,
because I was thinking about this earlier. It's like a muscle, right? The more you strengthen it, the stronger it gets. And I feel like this is kind of the same thing, really.
yeah. I know you also spoke about rejection, this idea of being rejected so many times
Hmm.
that it's forced you to become resilient because there's no other way but forward.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, um, the amount of times I've like had music and I've sent it out and not heard anything back, and it's like I'm actually completely immune to that now, like completely immune. It's like, I never expect a response on anything that I send anymore. Like, the base level is like, just do the work and put it out there, and believe in yourself, believe in what you're doing, and something will click. Like, that's kind of my approach. I mean, like, this year it's funny because I've gone from a place of where I've had a lot of rejection to, in a very short space of time. And I think this is sort of comes with mastery of your craft. But it's kind of flipped a little bit, and actually a lot more opportunities are opening up. People are getting in touch with me. People are recognizing what I'm doing. And it's odd because, and until you get these kind of markers, external markers, um, that's when people start looking at you and saying, "Oh, you know, well, what's he doing? He's doing something good here. Like, how has he done that, or why has he done?" And it's like, you know, it was always there. Like, you know, maybe you didn't see it, or maybe you didn't believe, like I did, that I have the ability to go somewhere with this. You know.
So, what are your 5 steps someone can take to become resilient?
So the 5 steps. I alluded to this earlier. It's basically you need to get knocked down and get back up again. It's that simple. So basically, take the fall. Tell yourself, "I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna carry on. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get through this." Get up, learn the lessons, and then repeat. And the more you repeat, the stronger you'll get.
And then you had that beautiful piece about developing that knowledge base, right? Because if you just constantly get knocked down and not learn something from it, then it's kind of a wasted lesson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, you know, if you got knocked down, what do you want to get knocked down in the same way again? I wouldn't want to. Like learn. What can you do differently? How can you approach that situation differently? Or, you know, what can you do to remove that negative energy or negative part of your life or whatever it is that's knocked you down, you know? How do you protect yourself from it essentially, right?
So I want to transition now into the brainstorming aspect, what I call brainstorming, and this idea, a question I asked about a movement, and you mentioned something very sort of simple, but yet very hard for us as humans to do, which is
Mm.
this idea of kindness. How has the idea of kindness been a factor in your own life, and how have you seen room for improvement? I would love to have a deep dive into that premise.
Yeah. This is something like, you know, that's kind of quite close to my heart. You know, I'm a very warm person. I'm generally like an open book. But yeah, I mean, kindness is just a core trait that I have. And I do try and surround myself with people who have that same trait, you know. Um, it's just a part of who I am, you know, like I just don't like people not being good humans to one another, right? Like what? Why would you actively go out your way to hurt or harm someone? Like, you know, I mean, I use this as an example, but like, you know, I've been to restaurants and people are just really rude to the waiters. It's just like come on, man. Like, why are you above this person because of how much money you earn, or like because you're eating in the restaurant and they're serving your food? Like, they're human beings, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, and actually, I've got quite vocal in these. I've had it a few, like more than once, on occasions, and it's like I've actually, because it is a part of who I am and it's a part of my core value set. I've had to just say something, otherwise it would just like eat me up inside. It's like, you know, and then I feel like an idiot because I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said anything, you know, like it just would have like saved a whole load of awkwardness. But it's like, well, just yeah, just be nice, like. um but yeah, so I think kindness is really important, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, if
I think for me, I've seen it that way as well. Like it's so simple to
mm,
do. And I think,
mm,
especially being a coach, I know that it's because there's an imbalance somewhere within the person themselves. Like they themselves feel removed from that situation or removed from that person, or and they see difference, right, rather than seeing similarity. But
exactly that, yeah.
what's interesting is that so I just came back from South by Southwest. I covered the last 4 days, and NFTs and metaverse was so big there. And what I found very interesting is that I got invited to all these quote unquote activations and houses where I would experience these. And what I found very interesting is that the metaverse is a universe within itself, meaning there is that you could create anything you want from it. The idea of you as a human being and your ethnicity or your background or your doesn't really come into play. You are exploring that universe new with fresh eyes. So I would love to maybe just talk about this idea of kindness within that, because I feel like there's rules within, because everyone doesn't really know what to do, like they're sort of navigating or finding themselves. I would love to sort of introduce that idea into this
Yeah,
conversation.
Yeah, I think look, the metaverse thing is like really interesting. Like, essentially you can kind of create your own universe and kind of expand outwards from there. I mean, if you imagine, like, I mean, not everyone really thinks of things or life in this way, but and we're kind of going on a tangent here, but this is like really interesting conversation, right? But the energy you emit actually has the ability to go as far as you want it to go, essentially, right? And energy never dies. It transforms, or it gets absorbed and turned into something else. It's like the sun goes into plants and humans, and we use that energy, and then it transforms into other things. And the plants we eat and the food we eat, it's all energy, and we use that. And you know um yeah, I think everyone should just build kindness into their universe, like, and into their metaverse. Like, why is it so difficult to do? I understand, like, at times you can't be kind because the world operates under a kind of a pretense of a lot of competition, right? Like, wherever you go, there is competition everywhere, and so there are times where kindness doesn't work. But like, on a day-to-day basis, like, there's no need to just be an idiot to random people. Just like, that thing in particular is something that really grates on me. But yeah.
Yeah, it's also this factor of time, right? Usually people are rushed or feel like they're lacking in time. They tend to not be so kind. So I think the
Yeah,
key
and I
here
think
is to take a pause. It's to really take a pause.
I think so, yeah. And like, one thing I've noticed is that it's always in the sort of the big cities where there's hustle and bustle. That's where you see more of this kind of negative, like, behavior, which I don't really like. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you see it in very large populated areas where there are lots of jobs and busyness and traffic and all the rest of it, like. But yeah, maybe because I live in Swindon, it's kind of, it's a mid-sized town, I have a different outlook. Maybe maybe I'm, yeah, the one who's wrong.
Well, Kingdom, thank you so much. So where can my audience find out more about you and your work?
So you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube. Most of my handles on socials are I am Kingdom, Dumb, Kingdom Dumb. But yeah, if you search Kingdom in Spotify or YouTube, you'll find me on there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kingdom. This was really fascinating. Thank you so much.
No worries, Savio. Thank you for having me, and
Sure.
yeah, have a great day.
Okay, wonderful.
See ya.